Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. Adam Newman always knew the day would come when the mask eventually slipped, when the man everyone trusted without question would be forced to stand in the harsh light of verity, exposed and stripped of defenses. For weeks, Adam had watched Michael Baldwin play both sides with the smooth perfection of a seasoned counsel, slipping between commitment as fluently as changing suits, brooding solace to Victor Newman while still feeding information away. To everyone differently, Michael was the ultimate fixer, the pious consigliere who'd offered everything for the Newman conglomerate time and again. But Adam saw the cracks long before anyone differently did. He noticed the detainments, the excessively lost documents, the precisely chosen silences. Michael wasn't making miscalculations, he was making choices. And Adam, tired of being undervalued, decided it was time to set a trap so elegant, so watertight, that there would be no room for denial when it eventually snapped shut. This wouldn't be a reckless battle or a hasty blameworthiness. No, this would be surgical. And when it was over, Genoa City would no way look at Michael Baldwin the same way again. The plan began still, nearly invisibly. Adam blurted a false narrative, a fabricated internal extremity at Newman Enterprises involving coastal accounts and a shadow investor allegedly circling Victor's conglomerate like a shark. He assured the information was just satisfying enough to spark fear but subtle enough to feel like a secret someone wasn't supposed to know. The bait was infectious, and Adam knew exactly who would take it. Within hours, Michael made his move. He asked too numerous questions, probed too deeply, and most telling of all, requested documents that didn't officially live. Adam watched from the murk as Michael reached out to a third party under the guise of legal protection, using enciphered language that screamed treason to anyone who knew what to hear for. Every call, every communication, every document transfer was recorded, time-stamped, and entered. Adam didn't rush. He let Michael dig his own grave, subcast by subcast, treason by treason, until the substantiation was inviting. This wasn't dubitation. Presently. This was evidence. The moment Adam chose to spring the trap was nothing short of ruinous. He arranged a private meeting at Newman Enterprises, framing it as a last better strategy session with Victor, Michael, and a sprinkle of trusted directors. The pressure in the room was thick enough to choke on as Adam calmly presented his findings, piece by piece, like a prosecutor delivering an ending argument. Defenses lit up with interdicted dispatches. Audio clips played Michael's own voice back to him, stripped of environment, stripped of defense. Gasps echoed through the room. Victor's expression shifted from confusion to unbelief, also eventually to commodity far more dangerous, treason. Michael tried to intrude, tried to explain, but Adam no way stopped. He kept going, grim, merciless, laying bare every secret sale, every quiet initiative that proved Michael had been working against the Newmans while pretending to cover them. By the time Adam finished, there was no mistrustfulness left. The verity stood naked and inarguable in the center of the room. Michael's countenance cracked in real time. The confident attorney who'd talked his way out of captivity rulings and commercial disasters faltered, his voice shaking as he claimed he'd done it for the lesser good, that his conduct were meant to cover Victor from himself, to help a disastrous downfall. But the words chimed concave. Adam didn't indeed have to argue back, the substantiation did that for him. Victor rose sluggishly from his president, his fury cold and murderous, the kind that left scars long after the shouting stopped. "You didn't cover me," Victor said still, every syllable cutting like glass. "You betrayed me." Those 4 words hit harder than any blameworthiness Adam could have thrown. Michael's face drained of color as the consummation sank in. This wasn't damage control presently. This was the end of the line. The fallout was immediate and explosive. Victor ordered Michael out of Newman Enterprises, banning him from the structure, the company, and his inner circle in one ruinous breath. Times of fidelity were cancelled in seconds. Adam watched nearly, not with triumph, but with a grim sense of confirmation. For formerly, he wasn't the black lamb, the goat, or the villain twisting the cutter. He was the bone. Who'd been right each on. Yet the palm was complicated. As Michael was attended out, Adam caught a regard of commodity unanticipated in his eyes, not wrathfulness, not abomination, but remorse. It dallied just long enough to unhinge him. Had Michael truly believed he was doing the right thing? Or had he simply induced himself of that to justify his treason? Adam didn't know, and worse, he wasn't sure it signified presently. Word of Michael's exposure spread through Genoa City like campfire. Abettors reseated themselves overnight. Adversaries stoned their shanks. Lauren Fenmore was blindsided, forced to defy the reality that the man she'd trusted implicitly had been living a secret life right under her nose. Her heartache was raw, public, and insolvable to ignore. She demanded answers Michael couldn't completely give, and the silence between them spoke louder than any concession ever could. Meanwhile, Adam set up himself in a strange position, admired. Stressed. Indeed admired. For formerly, people weren't brooding about his insecurity or his dark history. They were talking about his intelligence, his perfection, his capability to outthink someone as redoubtable as Michael Baldwin. And that scarified him further than any rejection ever had. Because respect came with prospects and adversaries. Michael, now insulated and lowered, refused to go still. Stripped of his legal standing with the Newmans, he began conniving his coming move, convinced Adam had manipulated the Verity just enough to destroy him while hiding his own docket. Was Adam truly exposing a snake, or barring a rival? That question eroded at Michael, fueling a dangerous resolve. However, he was wrong, if Adam allowed. This was game over. The war had only changed shape. And nearly deep down, Adam tasted it too. Palm tasted bitter because it wasn't final. It no way was in Genoa City. In the fate, Victor faced a reckoning of his own. Losing Michael wasn't just about treason, it was about vulnerability. For times, he'd reckoned on Michael as both guard and brand, trusting him with secrets that could destroy entire families if they ever surfaced. Now those secrets felt exposed, fragile, at threat of being weaponized. Victor turned his aspect toward Adam with commodity dangerously close to admire, admitting the son he'd undervalued formerly again proved his worth. But trust between them remained fragile. Adam had won this battle, but the war for Victor's blessing was far from over. As the dust settled, one Verity remained imperturbable. Adam Newman had changed the power dynamics of Genoa City ever. Michael Baldwin was no longer the untouchable supporter, the quiet manipulator behind the scenes. His true constancy had been revealed, his double life dragged into the open for all to see. From trusted confidant to exposed adversary, his fall was as dramatic as it was ruinous. And Adam, standing at the center of the chaos, knew this moment would define him, not just as Victor's son, but as a player important enough to rewrite the rules. The trap had worked. The treason was exposed. And in Genoa City, nothing would ever be the same again. The moment Michael Baldwin walked out of Newman Enterprises under fortified security companion, the doors closing behind him with a futurity that echoed down the marble halls, commodity abecedarian beggared inside Genoa City. This wasn't just the fall of a trusted supporter, it was the collapse of a system that had still depended on Michael's steady hand for decades. And Adam Newman knew it. He felt the earthquake the moment Michael faded from view. The megacity had listed on its axis, and everyone would soon feel the consequences. What Adam didn't anticipate, still, was how snappily that palm would begin to rot from the inside out. Victor Newman wasted no time rewriting history. Within hours, he instructed his legal platoon to ramify every tie connected to Michael Baldwin. Lines were locked, watchwords changed, contingency plans actuated. Michael's name was dropped from sensitive operations as if he no way was. But the Verity was unpretty, Michael knew, too important to simply abolish. Times of secrets, cover-ups, shadow deals, and legal pushes lived inside his head. And Victor knew it. That knowledge eroded at him, turning his wrathfulness into commodity colder, commodity far more dangerous. Treason was bad enough. A betrayed man with influence was intolerable. Adam, meanwhile, set up himself under a microscope. Tales followed him through every corridor, every bar, every extension in Genoa City. Some praised his brilliance, calling him the only Newman ruthless enough to see the verity. Others wondered audibly whether Adam had simply outplayed Michael, or orchestrated the treason himself. Adam pretended not to hear it, but the mistrustfulness burrowed deep. This wasn't the clean palm he'd imagined. It was messy, unstable, and loaded with consequences he couldn't completely control. Lauren Fenmore Baldwin was the first domino to fall, intimately, sorrowfully, and without mercy. When she brazened Michael at their home, the pressure was suffocating. Gone was the composed attorney who always had the right words. In his place stood a man possessed by verity, scrabbling for explanations that sounded decreasingly concave. Lauren demanded to know how long he'd been lying, how numerous times he'd chosen someone additional's docket over their marriage. Michael claimed he'd been guarding her, guarding them all, but Lauren wasn't buying it. The look in her eyes wasn't just hurt. It was treason stoned into resoluteness. She walked down that night, leaving Michael alone with the wreckage of his choices. But Michael Baldwin had no way been a man to accept defeat still. Behind unrestricted doors, he began assembling his counterpunch. The substantiation Adam presented was ruinous, yes, but Michael knew how it was gathered. He knew where the legal Argentine areas were buried. And more importantly, he knew what Adam hadn't shown. There were exchanges. Missing recordings. Picky edits. Michael realized Adam's trap hadn't just exposed him, it had manipulated the narrative. And Michael would not go down as a snake without dragging the verity into the light, indeed if it meant burning the Newman conglomerate to the ground. The first warning shot came when non-public Newman documents began surfacing in unanticipated places. Regulatory agencies asked pointed questions. Old deals were suddenly under scrutiny. It wasn't enough to destroy the company, not yet, but it was enough to rattle Victor. Adam honored the pattern incontinently. This wasn't arbitrary. This was Michael, reminding them all that he was still dangerous. Still applicable. Still holding cards no bone. Differently could see. Victor brazened Adam intimately, the air between them thick with implied blameworthiness. You opened this door, Victor growled. Now you'll help me close it. Adam didn't blench, but the weight of responsibility pressed hard against his casket. For the first time, he wondered if exposing Michael had been the right move, or simply the most spectacular mistake of his life. Because Michael Baldwin wasn't just a fallen supporter. He was a wounded bloodsucker. As pressure mounted, cracks began forming within the Newman family itself. Nikki bothered audibly about what secrets Michael might reveal next. Victoria questioned Adam's styles, intimating that his preoccupation with being right might have risked them all. Indeed, Victor, despite his grudging respect, kept Adam at arm's length. The communication was clear. Adam had proven his value, but trust was still tentative. And tentative trust was the most dangerous kind. Meanwhile, Michael made his boldest move yet. He reached out to an unanticipated supporter. Someone with their own reasons to see Adam Newman fall. Someone who understood vengeance as privately as he did. When Adam learned of the connection, his blood ran cold. This wasn't just retribution. This was strategy. Michael wasn't fighting to clear his name presently. He was fighting to reclaim power. The battle everyone stressed eventually exploded when Adam and Michael crossed paths again, not in a boardroom or courtroom, but face to face, stripped of pretense. Michael indicted Adam of setting him up, of engineering treason where none had was. Adam fired back, refusing to back down, reminding Michael that choices had consequences. The exchange was unpredictable, raw, and deeply particular. For a transitory moment, Adam saw it, the verity buried beneath Michael's rage. Michael had believed he was smarter than everyone, differently. Untouchable. And Adam had shattered that vision. But Michael left Adam with a nipping warning: you suppose this is over because you won one battle. But I know effects you doen't. And when they come out, you won't be the idol. You'll be the villain. The words visited Adam long after Michael faded into the murk. Lauren, caught between fidelity and tone preservation, faced an insolvable choice. She could stand by Michael and threat being dragged down with him, or she could cover herself and everything she directed. Her decision would shoot shockwaves through Genoa City, altering alliances in ways no bone could prognosticate. And Adam knew it. However, his chances of survival shrank dramatically if Lauren turned on Michael. If she didn't, the Newman family was in further peril than ever. As the megacity braced for the coming disclosure, one thing came sorrowfully clear: Adam's trap had ended the war. It had simply exposed the battleground. Michael Baldwin's true nature had been revealed, but so had Adam's. He wasn't just Victor's worried son presently. He was a kingmaker. A destroyer. A man able of rewriting fates with a single move. And in Genoa City, that kind of power always comes at a price. The megacity of Genoa City didn't sleep. Presently it awaited. Every boardroom tale, every hushed phone call, every sideways regard carried the same implied question: what does Michael Baldwin still have? Because no bone believed a man like Michael could fall without taking half the megacity down with him. Least of all Adam Newman. Adam felt it far and wide. In the way exchanges stopped when he entered a room. In the way Victor's eyes dallied just a second longer, measuring, calculating. Adam had exposed a snake, but in doing so, he'd revealed commodity differently. Just as dangerous, he was no longer predictable. And in the Newman world, unpredictability was either an armament or a death judgment. Michael Baldwin was officially disgraced, but unofficially, he was getting commodity. Far worse, a ghost. No longer bound by fidelity, character, or indeed law, Michael moved quietly through back channels and old favors, pulling vestments no bone flashed back was. He didn't need an office or a title presently. He'd memory. And memory was power. He began reconstructing his conglomerate piece by piece, not with brute force, but with perfection, the same way Adam had destroyed him. The first true crack appeared when Victor entered a process tied to a long-buried accession from times before, a deal Michael himself had formerly gutted up. The timing was no coexistence. Victor knew it incontinently. Michael was undoing aimlessly. He was choosing pressure points. Strategic bones. Each document that surfaced wasn't meant to destroy, it was meant to remind Victor who had defended him all these times and what happened when that protection dissolved. Victor summoned Adam again, this time with none of the admiration that had compactly flitted between them ahead. You said this was handled, Victor snapped. Adam didn't argue. He couldn't. Because the verity was terrifyingly clear, Michael Baldwin had planned for this day long before Adam ever sprung his trap. This wasn't retribution. It was contingency. Meanwhile, Lauren Fenmore set up herself at the center of a storm she no way agreed to stand in. The fallout from Michael's exposure bled into every corner of her life, her business, her character, her Gemütlichkeit. People smiled to her face and rumored behind her reverse. She loved Michael. That hadn't dissolved overnight. But trust? That was gone. And love without trust was just another liability. When Lauren discovered Michael had intimately moved means without telling her, not to cover her, but to cover himself, commodity inside her hardened. The treason wasn't just professional. It was particular. And formerly Lauren Fenmore decided she'd been played, there was no going back. Adam didn't know whether to sweat Lauren's silence further than Michael's pitfalls. Because if Lauren turned on Michael, she wouldn't do it emotionally, she'd do it strategically. And she knew where the bodies were buried too. As Michael's shadow crusade boosted, Adam began noticing unsettling gaps in his own plan. Lines he'd reckoned on were suddenly deficient. Surveillance records he'd trusted no longer aligned impeccably. Someone had edited history, and Adam realized with a cold twist of dread that Michael had anticipated being exposed. Some of Adam's evidence had been allowed to surface. Curated. Shaped. Michael hadn't just been caught, he'd chosen how he'd be caught. The disclosure hit Adam hard. Michael hadn't lost control. He'd offered position to gain freedom. Their coming hassle came suddenly, not through battle, but through consequence. Adam learned that a non-public psychiatric evaluation from his one buried so deeply, indeed Victor infrequently conceded it, had been still flagged for review. The recrimination was clear. Michael was attacking Adam's business moves presently. He was attacking Adam himself. His credibility. His stability. His right to lead. Rage burned hot, but sweat burned deeper. Adam knew how fluently the narrative could flip. Moments idle could come hereafter's liability with one well-placed mistrustfulness. And Michael Baldwin was a master of mistrustfulness.